I think it's so easy to feel like we suck when we're not ranking up or we lose a bunch of games. But having a learning mindset really helps to remind us that we don't suck and we're actually getting better, like little by little. I think we often look so far ahead that we forget about all the small wins that got us to where we are. Hi, I'm Gloria and I'm back for week 8 of applying a growth mindset to Valorant. After my 8-game lose streak last week, I was pretty motivated to play better and win games again. For this week, I'm only gonna highlight new things I learned or adjustments I made to my schedule because otherwise the videos just end up too long and take way too long to edit. On Monday, Tam pointed out some pretty important things related to my decision making and my mechanics again. He happened to watch this clip and noticed I was not playing optimally with the information I had. I was playing defense as Brim on Lotus and I rotated really cautiously here. I could have sprinted to trade my Raze who was trying to flood site. Like, Raze was literally behind me at one point, but I went so slow that she ended up on site before me. I could have either ran with my Raze to flood with her or cleared the smoke way faster to trade my Raze. Regardless of what I could have done in this situation, the real issue was that I just wasn't able to read what was going on here. This was just one example, but there were a lot of situations where I was not aware of what was happening because I wasn't reading the minimap correctly. Okay, ignore the faces I was making here, but I did take a few glances at the minimap, but I literally had no idea that my race was like running here until I reviewed it to make this video. Because these types of situations happened a lot, we thought this would be a good focus for me to work on, not just looking at the minimap, but reading the minimap and looking at the kill feed and understand what exactly is going on. In general, it's pretty hard for me to visualize the minimap because I'm just not used to looking at it honestly, but I'm sure with good practice it'll get easier over time. My awareness is going to be so much better if I can just consistently practice doing this. I'm pretty lucky to have Tam as a coach because he can literally just see me play whenever he wants. He pointed out that my wrist tension looked pretty high while I was deathmatching and that I was mostly using my arm to aim. And I was like, whoa, I had no idea, but also that makes so much sense. Because that's kind of what it feels like to me, like in hindsight, but I had no idea before he said that. Based on this feedback, I decided to write down things to focus on for this week. I thought it would be good to have a focus, so yeah. Number one, first thing was obviously to continue my mechanics training from last week. Second thing was to learn to read the minimap and kill feed better to improve my overall awareness. The third thing was to train my wrist tension in both deathmatches and in game. And the fourth thing was to continue studying maps because of how helpful this has been in the past for me. I decided to focus on Split this week because Split is my worst map right now and I find myself bottom bragging a lot. It felt really nice to have things to focus on and I felt a lot more purposeful and motivated for the week. So the next day I woke up and immediately watched a video of Aspas playing Jett on Split. I did this because I usually look at random things on my phone in the morning when I can't get up right away, and I thought that I might as well learn about Valorant and feel less bad about myself instead of just doom scrolling. I took note of his positioning on defense and also how he opted like every round that he could. It implanted this idea in my head that I needed to learn to op if I wanted to play Jett. On Wednesday, I woke up and watched about 3/4 of Charlatan's Jett Split defense guide, and he mentioned how you want to abuse the shorty and the judge and the operator on this map. And I was long avoiding this issue that I couldn't use guns other than the Vandal, but the signs all seem to be pointing in this direction for me to learn different guns. I decided to VOD review before my comp games to warm up mentally, and also because it was hard for me to VOD review after my comp games because I honestly just had no motivation to do it. But VOD reviews have probably been the most helpful thing for me, so it was important that this was a consistent habit so I could continually improve the feedback loop. I actually tried to record this live so I didn't have to record my voice again, but my mic never picked up on this video, so here is another voiceover. Some quick learnings from this game of my Jett on Split after watching Charlatan's defense guide for just about 30 minutes. First of all, my team seemed pretty friendly this game, so I was trying to make calls, and after losing the first round, I called for an eco strat. Okay, let's do the eco strat. This time we actually, one person want to lurk mid, and then everyone else we go through vents from A. Okay, never mind. And then my teammate responded,
You speak too fast. We're not locked in right now. We're like up 100. No, no, listen. You have to know the lore. We're up like 100 RR. We're drained out, trying to get our friend a P2. So like, yeah.
and I was like, okay, whoa.
Oh, shit.
Now I don't have a plan, and I ended up throwing the round, which was totally winnable. I think a lesson here was that when my original plan deviates and like when I make a call and it's not listened to, I need to quickly make a new plan for myself and not to throw my life away. Also, looking back on this, I could have had clear comms and said, everyone come Abrams with me. And my team might have been more willing to listen from a more simple call. I actually tried this in a game recently and it worked to just like get everyone on board to do something. Second learning, this was like the first rank game I have ever bought a judge, like intentionally. Whenever I used to see a judge, I did not pick that up. But holy shit, I was having so much fun with this gun. We didn't even win this game, but I felt like this was a huge win in my book because of how many kills I got with the judge and the shorty. And this was only possible because Charlatan literally shared spots that I could hold with the judge, and so I felt pretty confident using these guns in these positions. One thing that I did learn though was that I needed to have a clear plan to smoke and dash to get into safety after using these guns. Especially with the shorty, I definitely could have got out and gone for another kill. One random learning from this game is it's actually not a new learning, it's something that probably is in all of my videos, but I'm just so oblivious to enemy sentinel utility. Like Cypher placed his trip here twice and I could literally break it from inside the smoke, but instead I tried to break the left side of the trip, which makes no sense. Ugh. Also, I don't know why, but I tend to walk in sage slows very often. Like, I can't tell you how many times I try to push through a sage slow. It's such a weird autopilot, but I need to create a mental trigger where if I see a sage slow, I should just pause and reevaluate what to do next. It's so funny because I reflected on this earlier in the week, but I've actually played games where now when I see a sage slow, I do pause. I feel like I almost fixed this problem already. So I think one thing that I need to do here is that if the enemy has a Cypher and we're at his site, I should pause and then make a plan on how to deal with the util or an alternative plan before W-keying into site. I haven't fixed this problem yet, but because I fixed the Sage slow problem, I feel like this will be possible, hopefully. After VOD reviewing, I was really curious about my wrist tension that Tam brought up at the beginning of the week, and was thinking about all the things that might be affecting it. One obvious thing was that when I swim or do deadlifts, my arm gets a little more tense or sore, which would affect my aim. Another thing I thought was the ramp warm-up on Aim Labs. I used that to warm up, but I feel like I was mostly using my arm and I would have higher tension because of the warm-up. The other thing was that I literally did mechanics training for like 45 minutes earlier in the day before I played comp games. But the thing is, I did take a break in between, so I wouldn't be like immediately tired, but maybe it was affecting me more than I had thought. After thinking about this, I decided to aim train and work on my mechanics after my comp games that day. I was curious if it would help my aim to be less tense. So I hopped into my usual warm-up routine minus the ramp warm-up, and when I got into my first team deathmatch, I could already tell that my wrist tension felt looser. I was also surprised because I felt like I could actually see myself aiming and micro-adjusting in the TDM. My aim felt better in my comp games too, and I'm not sure if it was just placebo or I was just less tired that day or there's so many variables, but regardless, what's most important is how I felt, so I decided that I'd continue experimenting with this and see how I felt for the rest of the week. At the time, I really did feel like doing the ramp warm-up was too much for me, and it made my arm and wrist tired so that I tensed up more. Tam said I might have been doing the ramp warm-up incorrectly, so I don't want to rule it out as like a bad warm-up, but it just wasn't working for me at this time for whatever reason. On Thursday, I continued on this new schedule and VOD reviewed my Brim on Fracture for 30 minutes before queuing into comp. I really like VOD reviewing before playing because I think it helped with my overall awareness of the game. If a certain theme stood out to me while VOD reviewing, it was easier for me to remember that in my first comp game after that because it was like top of mind. Okay, so back to my Fracture gameplay. One really important recurring recurring theme I noticed again is that I got really panicked when I didn't have a proper plan to retake site. It felt like that stood out the most to me during this VOD review, so I decided to create a mental checklist for myself before I retake site. As a quick mental checklist, I'm sure it could be better, but for now, before I retake, before I exit the choke point, I just need to pause for 2 seconds, however many, and think, okay, what utility do I have or what utility do my teammates have? And where should I position myself or retake from? And where are my teammates positioning themselves or retaking from? This actually already helped me for a future retake situation, although I still struggle with this. I'm happy I identified it because it can literally change the outcome of winning a round or not. On Friday, I reviewed my Clove on Abyss, and the biggest theme that stood out to me here was that my crosshair placement needed improvement on site take or retake situations. I practiced my entries as Jett on this map a few times, so I have a pretty clear plan for how to smoke, like updraft or dash onto site on both A and B site. But as Clove, I actually got so lost that as soon as we entered the choke point, I wasn't able to autopilot my crosshair placement in chaotic situations. After this VOD review, I hopped into a custom and practiced clearing A site because it felt like a really low-hanging fruit for me. I wanted to be confident taking these fights because I tended to die a lot before I could get to the power position that I like to hold on backsite. Another thing that I didn't understand were the angles on Abyss. In this clip, I'm trying to scale to the left while my teammates are main. Despite their positioning, I was still worried about someone swinging my right side, even though they were literally holding the right side for me. Because of this confusion, I wasn't able to focus on the fight with this gecko on the left side, and I took a bad fight and I died. I could have glanced at the minimap to see that someone was holding the right peak and fully committed to clearing the left side. This was the same issue that I talked about in the beginning of the video where I just wasn't reading the situation based off of the minimap. This last thing that stood out to me, which like totally ingrained in my brain after this game and VOD review, was that I just had no idea how to play around Deadlock's util. This is exactly the same issue I had on a previous VOD review but with different Sentinel util. I can't tell you how many times I've run past a Deadlock's sound sensor or whatever, or have been caught in her net. After this game, one thing that I started doing was to be wary of Deadlock's sound sensor and not run past it like an idiot. It was successful in one game so far after this VOD review, but I'm gonna need to train myself to remember this in the future. Okay, so what went well for week 8? My mechanics fundamentals improved from when I first started. Here is a comparison of the beginning of week 7 and the end of week 8. It looks a lot more consistent and my timing has improved significantly for this drill. My overall awareness of how I play has also improved from the consistent VOD reviewing this week. It's getting way easier to notice my mistakes and yeah, the themes feel a lot more obvious to me now. Although I don't know what I don't know, so I joined Dopai's dojo community to learn to be a better player and just be a part of a community that actually wants to learn about the game and improve. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'll probably have a lot more learnings from this community next week. What didn't go well? My consistency in comp games has decreased ever since I reached my real rank after the reset. It felt like I was hitting a wall, but at the same time, this is the whole point of this YouTube series. I'm not hitting a wall and I'm constantly learning and getting better at the game. I just have to keep reminding myself this when I have a bad game and it affects my mental. How can I improve for next week? I'm starting my new job next week, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to fit this schedule that's already working well for me into my new routine. It's gonna be even more important to focus on things that will really move the needle for me. I also want to do a different aim training routine to help me with my micro adjustments while in game. Okay, we made it to the end of the week. I wrote notes for this video like way earlier in the week and I'm editing this late, so I've already seen myself improve at a lot of the struggles I mentioned in this video. Even the deadlock sensor thingy and the sentinel util. I think it's so easy to feel like we suck when we're not ranking up or we lose a bunch of games like I did last week. But having a learning mindset really helps to remind us that we don't suck and we're actually getting better like little by little. I think we often look so far ahead that we forget about all the small wins that got us to where we are. Yeah, this makes me really happy that I've been documenting this journey because I can like literally see all of the small wins. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye bye.
Play together on that.
Can you bait me? I have my ult.
planted. Not ready
I'm gonna
yet.
smoke in 3 seconds.
Not ready yet. No peeking.
Just peek off my contact.
Nice. Peace.
GG.
Hackers win.
Jeez.